Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to yet another ActionSA press conference. I think we should all get used to this. They'll be happening quite frequently. My name is Lerato Ngobeni. I serve as the national spokesperson of ActionSA. So thank you, as always, for being so responsive to our invitations. Let me start without wasting too much time. I think I can start at the end, introducing my colleagues. First up is Samgelo Mkopozi, who's our National Director of Communications, essentially my boss. And then you have Dr. Nasipi Moya, who is our Director of Governance, Chief Director of Governance. And then you have Andre Kutsia, who's our Chief Strategist. I'll skip the colleague on my left for last. And on my right, we have the Limpopo Provincial Chairperson, Mr. Sello Lidija. And then, of course, to my left is the President of ActionSA, Mr. Herman Mashaba. The way we're going to run these proceedings is that each speaker will take their turn one from the other. We won't play musical chairs. And then at the end, we will take your questions for clarity or any other reason you may need to ask your questions. First up, let me start with the President of ActionSA, Mr. Herman Mashaba, to give us context as to why we are here this morning. Mr. Mashaba.
Thank you, Lerato. Good morning, South Africa. Good morning, media. Thank you so much for always honoring our invitation to this very important engagement. Fellow South Africans, next year South Africa will once again head to the polls as we mark 30 years of a democratic government in our country, South Africa. But instead of being a moment of celebration, many will be a moment of reflection on the failure of a democratic South Africa to live up to the promise of 1994 and a prosperous future for all. I say this not to dwell on the numerous challenges we face as a nation. As South Africans, we are all too familiar with the problems we face. Instead, I want to shift the narrative of doom to provide South Africans with hope in the form of ActionSA's plans to put forward a credible, solution-based alternative to the political system that has failed us. Today, it is my honor to announce that in September, from the 12th to the 14th, ActionSA will hold our inaugural policy conference to solidify our policy offering that will serve as our election platform for next year, 2024. The policy conference will be the culmination of an expert-led public engagement process that will serve to refine our policy offering. This consultative process will solicit inputs from internal structures, but also from those South Africans that have the knowledge and the skills that can enrich our offering. We believe that drawing on the views of people with first-hand knowledge of dealing with the challenges we face will ensure that the solution we put forward are not just based on academic research and international best practice, but also on real-world experiences. This, we believe, is central to putting a credible policy offering. As we have seen in recent months, it is easy to start a new political party in South Africa, but the success rate of new political parties is less than 1%. One of the biggest reasons for this is that despite a plethora of parties, very few have succeeded in providing a credible and compelling alternative that inspires hope. This is clearly seen in the declining voter turnout we have witnessed over the past 3 decades. In the 2019 general elections, of the roughly 36 million eligible voters in South Africa, a mere 17.6 million cast a vote. Put differently, more eligible voters did not vote than those who did. At the heart of the problem is that many of these new parties succumb to internal leadership battles while failing to focus on work of putting forward a credible alternative to that which will take South Africa forward. After spending the past 3 years engaging countless South Africans about our future for our country, I can say without fear of contradiction that South Africans are not interested in lofty ideas, grandiose speeches, or endless analysis of the problems we face. They want to know, in simple terms, how ActionSA plans to fix South Africa. What they are looking for is a party that can credibly put forward concrete plans to place our country on a path to a prosperous future. When we launched ActionSA in 2020, this is exactly what we set out to do. We were not guided solely by desire to unseat the ANC, but to provide an alternative to a failed political establishment in our country, South Africa. Putting forward a credible policy offering or a plan of action that ordinary South Africans can believe in is vital to inspire the unheard majority to go to the polls and vote for change. This plan must make South Africans believe that change is possible and that their vote can help to create a better future for themselves and their families. The desire to inspire hope for change in South Africans is what guided the launch of ActionSA's South African Dream in February this year. The South African Dream is our vision for an inclusive and prosperous future for all South Africans. This is a vision for what we believe a future South Africa free from the ANC and led by an ethical and caring government can look like. It is important to dream, to have something to aspire to. But as a party of action, we need to ensure that our dream for South Africa is supported by tangible plans to realize that vision. This is the objective of our policy process and the policy conference in September. While the formal part of the public consultation process will commence in May, this is the continuation of a process that started with a wide-scale public engagement we held during the People's Dialogue. It was the People's Dialogue that ultimately informed our decision to launch ActionSA and the 7 core values or guiding principles on which it is grounded. The 7 principles, endorsed by 2.4 million South Africans, will continue to guide our organization. Firstly, non-racialism. The South African reality is that there's a strong correlation between race and socioeconomic opportunity. For us, non-racialism does not mean being colorblind. It means accepting that we have to actively work to build a society where race does not impact an individual's opportunity for upward mobility, where people are judged solely on their character. Secondly, economic prosperity. ActionSA sees the role of government as creating the conditions for the private sector, and especially SMMEs, to thrive and create jobs for our people. This is the only way to can build a more equal and prosperous society. Next, respect for the rule of law. No country has ever economically prospered in an environment of chaos. The prevailing lawlessness in our country must be faced head-on. We must empower independent law enforcement agencies to fight corruption, protect us from criminals, and prosecute without fear or favor. Next, social justice. ActionSA is unapologetic about promoting the interest of the marginalized. Our social justice efforts will focus on the promotion of equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. Next, quality education. Education is key in building a prosperous nation. We cannot and will not tolerate the dysfunctional nature of our public schools, which are failing our youth. We will ensure that every person has the skills to succeed in life. Next, ethical leadership and professional public service. We will be unapologetic about our pursuit for excellence in leadership and merit-based appointments in the public service. South Africans deserve to be led by ethical, competent and caring leaders and public servants that put the interest of South Africa first. Last, electoral reform and political accountability. We will drive an agenda that supports reforms to ensure that South African public representatives and political leaders are accountable to those towards which they have a responsibility. These principles remain the guiding light of ActionSA and the foundation on which our policy offering has been constructed. The consultative process that will take place over the coming months will be refined and enrich the policies that ultimately serve at the policy conference in September. We have adopted this approach because we do not believe that the solution to South Africa's greatest challenge can or will come from politicians alone. As we have always maintained, there's nothing bad about South Africa that cannot be fixed by what is good about South Africa. The good, hardworking, law-abiding, family-oriented, and freedom-loving people of our beloved country. ActionSA was born out of the engagements we have had with South Africans during the People's Dialogue, and we have not stopped listening to what our people have to say. That's why our policy process will follow a multimodal approach of best practice research, expert engagements, and internal public consultations. We believe this is important not only to ensure that we capture a diversity of voices and views in the finalization of our policy platform, something we believe will enrich our offering so that South Africans can take collective ownership of the project of fixing our broken country. On that note, fellow South Africans, allow me to hand over to our Chief Strategist, Mr. Andre Coetzee, to flesh out the process in detail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Herman, and good morning to everyone present. As Herman mentioned, ActionSA's policy development... Oh, sure.
Yeah, just so. Yeah, I think it'll be easier.
Okay.
I think so. Great idea.
Musical chairs after all.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I told you about these mics.
Thank you, Herman, and good morning to everyone present once again. As Mr. Mashaba outlined, ActionSA's policy development process started with the launch of the People's Dialogue in December 2019, and it is this process that ultimately ended up with 125,000 substantive submissions from South Africans, or if you want to put that in context, 10,000 pages of text. The submissions that we got out of that process ultimately guided the foundation of ActionSA, and it is that same volume or canon of data that has been informing our policy process over the past couple of years. Over the past couple of years, if you were to look on ActionSA's website, you'll see a collection of 14 solutions blueprints. It was those solutions blueprints that were initially adopted by ActionSA shortly after our launch, and those solutions have been our guiding policy documents ever since. But these solutions blueprints were never intended to be and do not amount to a comprehensive policy suite. That is, in fact, what the policy conference process intends to do. So the next phase of this policy process is aimed at really fleshing out our offering to voters for the 2024 elections. According to the ActionSA Constitution, the policy conference is our highest policy decision-making body and will ultimately be empowered to finalize the electoral offering for 2024. I can also tell you that the proceedings will be broadcast live to the nation to form part of this important process. The policy conference will bring together over 600 delegates, which will represent all 9 provinces, and we will also ensure that all 9 provinces have the opportunity to participate in the consultative process leading up to the policy conference. As an emerging party that was founded in August 2020, we have spent the past couple of years building structures and ensuring that we have representation in all 9 provinces. This is an important point from a policy perspective because our policy conference must represent the diversity of our party. From a thematic perspective, we have identified 11 policy areas that will form the focus of the upcoming policy conference and also the electoral platform for next year. These include economic prosperity, energy security, economic justice, corruption, law and order, education, healthcare, public service, which will also include elements such as local government and cooperative governance, foreign policy, climate and environment, and finally, rural development and traditional affairs. These 11 broad thematic areas will be unpacked in granular detail through the process that will unfold over the coming months, while also incorporating the submissions that we received during the People's Dialogue engagement process. ActionSA's approach to policy has always been anchored in our vision of what South Africa can be, as we expressed in the launch of the South African Dream in February this year. But as we work towards this dream, we realized that only pragmatic, tangible, long-term orientated, and financially feasible solutions can put South Africa on a path to prosperity once again. It's for this reason that at every phase of our policy development process, we have emphasized evidence-led development based in solid research practice, while acknowledging that public policy does not exist in a vacuum. There is this tendency that policy is often thought of as long documents that focus a lot on analysis while falling short on solutions. This is something that we very much want to avoid, so that our policies ultimately resonate with the voters that we want to encourage next year to come to the polls. And this is why we have always prioritized engagement and consultation with South Africans from all walks of life. We realize the importance of a bottom-up process, and hearing what people has to say has always been part of our DNA. This is nothing new. This is, in fact, the very basis on which our party was started. Equally, ActionSA values internal debate and engagement, and our diversity of views reflected in our Senate as well as in our members is what gives us strength as a party. As such, we will be taking our engagement processes to our members and our structures. Again, this is a very important process because as a new party that has shown growth over the past year or two, many of our members were not part of the People's Dialogue engagement process. So we want to ensure that we give everyone an opportunity, both past, present, and future, to really ensure that they are structuring an offering that resonates with experts. When I say experts, I think it is also important to understand that we do not understand experts in the academic context alone. And to use an example, who better to understand the challenges facing our basic education offering are the teachers who have to be at the coalface of teaching learners on every single day. So when we speak of experts, we want to ensure that whether it is teachers, policemen and women, engineers, doctors and nurses, these are the kind of people that we believe can actually give value and enrich our policy offering by ensuring that we always remain focused in the lived experiences of the people who are part of our South African policy implementation process. These inputs from these expert panels, as well as from the public engagement process and the provincial engagement process, will then feed into 11 provincial policy panels. And these provincial policy panels will then serve to debate the submissions that are received and ultimately give guidance to our Director of Policy, Mr. Johan Kriege. But I will allow our Limpopo chairperson to flesh out exactly what this implies. Finally, our Director of Policy, Mr. Johan Kriege, will be responsible for collating all of these submissions and ensuring that the documents that ultimately serve on the floor of the policy conference, as much as they are guided by the submissions that we have captured over the past 3 years, are also aligned to the values of the party, the South African Constitution, and in fact our legislative framework, which is not to say that we won't be proposing legislative changes, but at all times we must ensure that as a party of the rule of law, we expect the context in which we operate. Mr. Kriege is a non-political appointment that has been consulting with ActionSA since the very early days of the People's Dialogue. He has a master's degree in law, a master's degree in business administration, and substantive experience working in the National Parliament, local government, the World Bank, and various international NGOs. It is under his guidance that we have engaged with a broad range of experts, and we will continue to do so to ensure that our policies are technically relevant while based in the lived experience of South Africans. Before I hand over to the provincial chairperson, I would just like to thank the thousands of South Africans that have been part of this process to date. We have, as I have said, we have always been a party of engagement, and in fact, ActionSA would not be where it is today were it not for the countless voices that have added value to our offering, that have given their time and given their expertise and knowledge to ensuring that ActionSA is a party of ideas, because that is ultimately our focus. As Herman said, it is not just about unseating the ANC, it is about ensuring that we can have a compelling offering to the voters of this country and be a real alternative of governance come 2024. On that note, allow me to hand over to Ntate Lediga, our Limpopo Provincial Chairperson.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, all right. My name is Sello Lediga. I'm chairperson of ActionSA in Limpopo, one of the most rural of provinces in South Africa, from Messina to Bela, Yesteras to Giyani. As we have explained, the consultative process that we'll be conducting over the coming months will include expert engagements, broad public consultation, and of course, internal engagements. The importance of internal engagement with action structures cannot be overstated. As a party that has demonstrated phenomenal growth over the past couple of years, the implication is that many of our members were not part of the People's Dialogue engagements, nor the expert-led consultative process that resulted in the current set of solutions blueprints that was approved shortly after ActionSA launched in 2020. To illustrate this point, we have established 162 branches in Limpopo over the past 9 months alone. This is really significant in a province like Limpopo, where the ANC has reigned supreme since 1994. And for us to be able to achieve this in so short a time means that ActionSA is not just an urban party. It is actually growing more in the rural areas than most people think. And that is basically what is happening. To give an example, last year in December, there was a vacancy in Molechi, which is next to Seshego. And that is the stronghold of the ANC. And it is also the home of Julius Malema. And for us to have gone there when we did not even have a branch, was quite risky. And it took the Senate to be able to say, okay, you can. But let me tell you, the people in the rural areas are ready for ActionSA, and they are tired of the failure of the ruling party. In 2 months' time, we were able to achieve 9.6% outcome for ActionSA in an area where the ANC had been there for 32 years and the EFF for 10 years. So if you thought it was only happening in the urban areas, you must rethink that and know that it is happening in the rural areas. Last year, we also obtained 8% in KwaNobuhle in the Eastern Cape from a base of 0, and that's significant. The last one, I think you were reporting about it, was in KwaNongoma, one of the most rural areas. I'm sure some of you have been there, From nowhere, we obtained 11%. All these indicate the growth, the phenomenal growth of ActionSA in the rural provinces. So we need to explode the myth once and for all that our party is merely urban. As a party that has attracted voters from across the political spectrum, ActionSA is inherently a melting pot of different ideas from divergent policy backgrounds. While our founding values and guiding principles will not change, it is important that we respect the diversity of views within our party and afford our members the opportunity to play a formative role throughout the policy process in our offering for 2024. We do not want an elitist process that will just allow, intellectuals and academics to make an input while ordinary members of the party are left behind, because the process is as important as the product. To achieve this, starting in May, we will be hosting engagements across all 9 provinces to consult our members around the 11 policy areas Andre referred to. This will include branch-level engagements, regional engagements, and provincial-level engagements. In addition to this, we will also be allowing individual members to make submissions directly into the process. In short, we want to make it as easy as possible for ActionSA members to get involved in shaping our policy offering. And I think it's very important because the legitimacy of our policies depends on acceptance and contribution of our members more than anything else, and that is very important to us. These submissions will be centrally captured and passed on to the inter-provincial party panels to debate the submissions, consider them against the values of ActionSA and our constitutional and legislative framework, and make recommendations on how submissions should be treated. These inter-provincial policy panels will consist of 3 representatives from each province per policy bucket and will be chaired by a member of the Senate. This makes for 11 panels with 28 members per panel. So we are going to give ordinary members an opportunity. The purpose of these panels will be to provide consolidated feedback on the draft policies to allow them to be incorporated into the documents that will ultimately serve at the policy conference. This will ensure that our members can take collective ownership over a process from start to finish. I would now like to hand over to Dr. Nasipi Moya, Chief Governance Director, to address how the policy process fits into our broader preparations of ActionSA as part of our national government in 2024. So, the fourth estate, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ntateli Techa. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and molo to the gentleman in the front. I can see you speak my language, so I identify. Colleagues, you can hear that this process is designed to be organic within our party. When we are done, every member of ActionSA will be able to articulate our offer, comfortable in their mother tongues, which is something you don't get every day. In addition to the involvement of internal structures in this process to enrich our policy offering, as Ntateli Techa has been outlining here, we're also intentional about preparing potential MPs and MPLs for government. As Mr. Mashaba indicated earlier, ActionSA aims to provide South Africans with hope, true plans to put forward a credible, solutions-based alternative to the political system that has failed us. I want to emphasize that it is only through a credible leadership that this will be possible. If we want to achieve our South African dream, we need credible leadership to drive the policies we adopt. While Mr. Mashaba did not dwell on all the challenges, and he's right, ladies and gentlemen, we do not only know these challenges, but they are also our daily lived experience. Load shedding, outages, no waters in our taps. We live these on a daily basis. It's an indication of a broken system. However, on our side, we are intentional about offering credible leaders who will hit the ground running the moment they get elected. We do this because, ladies and gentlemen, we are committed to being the party of government. One thing you're not going to get from ActionSA is leaders with learner sign. They can drive, but they're not totally ready yet. We'll give you leaders that will implement the offering that we are talking about here today. But what I'll do, I'll just share with you some of the plans that we have, just to assure South Africans that ActionSA will only put the best forward to represent their needs and interests. I don't want to say too much, colleagues. There's a lot of parties coming up. I don't want to give them ideas, so I'll share 3. The first one, colleagues, is the involvement of our current public representatives. We are a new party, or a party, but we already have 91 public representatives in Gauteng and in KZN in 6 municipalities. These leaders have become a breath of fresh air in their municipalities. They continue to demonstrate what it means to be a party of action. Residents turn to them for solutions. So as individuals who are already the ambassadors of ActionSA in their municipalities, they will be tasked with the responsibility to take our offering to their constituents. One of the learnings that we've been getting over the past year and a bit is that government systems have completely alienated citizens. Our intention is to invoke the spirit of patriotism where ordinary South Africans are able to influence the agenda that affects their lives. Our councillors then will play a central role in this. The second one, colleagues, is that our party has launched a political academy that is aimed for all our members as well as leadership development in this effort of ours to prepare leaders for office, both political and public service. We don't only want politicians, you have the best politicians, but you don't have administrators to implement these plans. ActionSA cannot be part of the problem by flooding the system with individuals who are not ready to take the country forward. This would be contradictory to our guiding principles of ethical leadership and professional public service, which is one of the tenets that, that Andrew was talking to. So we've resolved to grow our own timber of leaders. We consider this to be one of the massive contributions in fixing South Africa. So all our members go through the political academy so that they are able to articulate what is it that we stand for. The last one, colleagues, is that we've already started our Ready to Govern campaign. The national chairperson of ActionSA always tells us the campaign starts the day of the election. You start preparing. So we started also on the 2nd of November, 2021. So as we lead to the 2024 elections, we'll share with South Africans our plans to showcase our readiness to govern. Potential public representatives will be part of our plans. So far, the Senate has approved an approach to select and nominate candidates. One of the critical indicators for us for a potential ActionSA MP and MPL will be the understanding of the policy offering. As I said, colleagues, the ActionSA leaders don't have a learner sign. So this is the work that needs to be done before the election. So beyond that, these individuals will be elected, will need to have the ability to devise plans of implementation before they reach office. So there's an acknowledgement, colleagues, within our party that you don't elect individuals and then hope that things will just work out. We are deliberate in our leadership selection process. Therefore, ActionSA, we assure South Africans will produce diverse teams that are made up of capable individuals to represent interests of South Africans in various provinces and national. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the process that we are outlining here today is designed for all members and South Africans who share our vision. It's very important. As part of this process, we are preparing leaders who will take our vision and implement it for the benefit of South Africans. Maybe just as a last part, we do please South Africans to open their homes to ActionSA activists so they are able to hear what is it that we offer. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I think we're at the end. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for your remarks. I think they were most insightful. I'll open for questions now. I'll take 5 at a time. Please tell us who you are, which house you represent, and then who you're directing your question to. I'll take your hand. I will take you. I'll take yourself. Is there anyone in the back? No, 3. Okay, go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Norma from the Sowetan. Firstly, I just want to pick a bone with what you said of chronic order. I was catching feelings for that. Which was that? Yes, okay, so with that out of the way. So I just want to ask, just in case I missed Dr. Mashaba's announcements earlier, I think you announced the date for the policy conference. In terms of location, where is it going to be? How many delegates are you guys expecting to attend the conference? And then also, when Dr. Mashabal was speaking, we spoke about new parties and how they battle in terms of internal squabbles with political leadership within those parties. Your constitution is very clear in terms of when you yourself can be contested within the party. It specifically states X amount of months after an election and states that you will be basically the presidential candidate of ActionSA heading to 2024. I wanted to ask, the way that section of the Constitution is phrased, it basically prevented ActionSA from having those internal squabbles, battles for leadership. I wanted to ask, was this a deliberate attempt on your side or ActionSA's side to prevent that from happening? And then also, are you guys going to be maybe releasing policy documents or policy discussion documents after the consultations or before? Just when can we expect those?
Good morning, Abongile Dumako, SABC News. How is this consultative process going to take place? Are you going to knock in each and every door? Are you going to open it on a website so that we can throw in their ideas? That's number one. Number two, from you, Mr. Kutsia, you did make mention of the fact that there's about 11 points of discussions in as far as the policies are concerned. So if already you've got 11 points of policies to be discussed at conference, why consult? Nifuna ndoni. And then, of course, with regards to, I'll say, the feeling, for a lack of a better word, that we see go around that in 2024 there might possibly be coalition government and all of those things. Have you, as ActionSA, maybe building up to the policy conference, looked at how you would approach a situation where you have to be in a coalition with any political party, looking at the fact that at the municipal level, especially in Gauteng, there isn't much direction in as far as these coalitions are concerned? Thank you.
All right. This morning still, afternoon. Good morning. Igama lam nguSisanda Mboleko from the Sunday Times. My question is directed at Dr. Nasipi Moya. Just to make sure I've captured you correctly, you said, you made mention rather of a political academy for your members and your public reps, insofar as not to flood the public surface with administrators who are not knowledgeable on your policies and values. Am I correct? Sounds to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like the ANC and the OR Tambo School of Governance. So just clarify to me what ActionSA stance is on cadre deployment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. Let me start with actually confirming the date, as I indicated during my remarks. The date is the 12th to the 14th of September 2023, so it will be for 3 days at the Beachwood Hotel in Ekurhuleni. So the venue is already confirmed. And in terms of the delegates, I know it's just over 6,000.
600.
Sorry, 600. 600. Sorry, some of us, we get confused with numbers.
Don't take us back.
Yeah, we have about 600 delegates. I'm not sure. We have the actual number, 609. 609 delegates, and I think we're happy to share with you the spread of how many. We do have the numbers per province. They've already been provided that information. I think it is available for public consumption. In terms of the elective conference, absolutely deliberate. I think if you look at what ActionSA faced on inception, this party was launched on the 29th of August 2020, right in the middle of COVID, when you could not contest. And for that reason, we strategically took a conscious decision to contest only. At the time, we wanted to contest only 3 municipalities in Gauteng, that is Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, and Tshwane, because we did not want to really overstretch ourselves, because our movements were restricted by COVID. Fortunately, our colleagues in KZN put forward a very compelling argument for us to contest the 3 municipalities in KZN, eThekwini, KwaDukuza, and Newcastle. And I think what is actually came out of this, it's really quite pleasing. Remember, I just want to remind you about really something really very fundamental that sometimes South Africans forget. Remember, a few weeks before the elections, IEC decided to punish us, refusing to put our name on the councillor ballot paper. We contested as a logo, but we emerged Out of the 278 municipalities, we emerged as the 6th biggest political parties with actual voters of 550,000. And some of the electoral experts did an exercise to demonstrate the impact of contesting as a logo that deprived us of 60,000 votes. But we decided as ActionSA to move forward and then focus on building structures for 2024. Now, if one uses this little brain that God has given us to use, do you focus on elective conference when you don't have national structures? Because we only contested in the 6 municipalities. I think it only made sense. I mean, it's no-brainer that we, as our Senate said, let's focus on building national structures in 2022 and make sure that we build branches. Because when you run an elective conference, it's going to really be the representative of the whole nation, because South Africa has got the 9 provinces. We can't have an elective conference with only Gauteng and KZN. I mean, look at what Limpopo has done. Really completely surprised us. I think, honestly, we need to really be honest with ourselves. Ndadeli has surprised us that right now, officially, we have more branches in Limpopo than anywhere else in the country. We're not saying that we don't have structures in other provinces. Did you expect this to happen? Honestly, personally, I think it's a miracle what Ndadeli has done. And you look at not only just Limpopo, you look at our electoral performance 2 weeks ago in Nongoma. You know, when Zwakele presented this proposal to us that we contest in Nongoma, we said to him, my goodness, Zwakele, are you not really setting us up for failure? You know, we took it on. Emerged with actually 10.2% of the vote, becoming the 3rd biggest political party in that rural province. We're the 3rd biggest political party in Mulej. We're the 3rd biggest political party in Nelson Mandela Bay. We're the second biggest party in Ward 96 in Tshwane. This whole particular ward, 6 months after the elections, there was a by-election. This ward is one of the biggest, if not the biggest ward in Tshwane. 80% white Afrikaners. We moved from 6% from the 5th biggest political party to the 2nd. Every party that contested with us dropped by big margins. We moved from 6% to 22%. So then if we have to then move forward and have success in 2024, do we focus on just having an elective conference for the sake of running elective conference? Our view, and I think it was deliberate, and I think it's the right strategy, because when you operate in life, you've got to be strategic. You don't just really follow like a sheep, do what everybody else does. I think our country is in big trouble. We need a new government, and we need to really bring it peacefully through a democratic process. So our focus as ActionSA right now is to really make an impact in the 2024 election. So we will only have an elective conference after the 2024 election. Right now, we don't have the time and the luxury, and there is no need whatsoever. And we've also made it clear for people who are looking for elective conferences they've had last year and this year. We've always said, please go to parties where there's elective conference. This is not about elective conference. So this party was started from the People's Dialogue. It started from the ground up, given the mandate by 2.4 million South Africans. So it was definitely a deliberate move. That's why it is there for the public to see. In terms of policy documents availability, I think Andre will deal with that matter. And I think I can deal, Abu from SABC, deal with coalition dynamics. One thing for us as ActionSA we have accepted is that no single political party will win, will get 50 plus 1. No political party. No political party, I believe, will get anywhere close to 40% of the vote. Anyone would will definitely have to really go into a coalition. South Africa has entered an era of coalition government, and personally, I'm really actually excited about this because as a 63-year-old South African that lived from 1959 when I was born under National Party, one-party government, realized the damage the National Party caused over the years prior to 1994. And now I've lived another 29 years under one-party state of the ANC. And I look at countries in our continent where some of the leaders they have been in power since independence in the early 60s and so forth. And really, let's really look at their performance. So one-party rule is actually not really good for our continent. It's not good for the world because if you look at all the established democracies, I mean, Europe immediately after the Second World War, they've really been from one coalition government after the other. In the beginning, you look at the difficulties that they went through, but right now they're stabilized. They're completely stable. There's no way you're going to have stability in a coalition arrangement because you've got parties with different views. But what you do, you really look at the ones that are closer to you than the ones that are far away from you. So for us as ActionSA, we have accepted the coalitions. We will work with the coalitions, but we want to really make it really very clear as ActionSA that we will not obviously work with the ANC in all three spheres of government. We will not really work with the EFF at national and provincial government. I'm sure all of you are aware, I worked very well with the EFF at local government level. And I think it's something that I believe one needs to credit and acknowledge. When I was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, I had the city of Johannesburg had the most stable coalition. And EFF, without any doubt, was the most supportive. Why? Let's look at the difference. At local government level, it's about the budget. We approve the budget to decide which roads we're going to deal with potholes that needs to be fixed. We hope we had Ahmed to assist us because it looks like it's an expert in potholes. The management, unfortunately, wasn't part of our government. So it's easy to it is easy to deal with local government because there are no policy issues to worry about. The reason why we'll never work with the EFF is because our policy offerings are so really diametrically different. I cannot afford to sit with a situation where a political party tells us as government that we must own banks, you know, or my house must be owned by the land on which my house sits. It must be owned by the state. So those are things that honestly I don't want to waste their time and I don't want to waste mine. But at local government level, absolutely any time, because there are no policy differences. And the reason why I would not work with the ANC because I have come to accept ANC to be a criminal organization masquerading as a political party. For that reason, let me just share something briefly with you. I'm 63 years old, born in almost abject poverty, and avoided at all costs not to get involved in criminality. And I was lucky at the age of 22, decided to use my capitalist upbringing to free myself. Today, I enjoy the freedom that I have by creating wealth for myself and my family. And that's the reason why I can do this job. So if I could afford to avoid being a criminal at an early stage when you live in poverty, and now at the level age I am and join a criminal enterprise, I'll be mad. I will not really work with the criminal syndicate. So for that reason, they are out of the question for us to really work with them at all levels of our government. But other political parties, we might have differences. You know, I've had differences with other parties, including having to abandon my mayorship 2 years ahead of time, which was really very unfortunate. It's just that I'm not a pushover. There are certain things that are not negotiable to me. But we are happy to really work with other political parties. As long as people working with us, they must understand that mutual respect is non-negotiable. The question of who leads the coalition, it's not negotiable. I think when we enter into negotiations with us on coalition, let us all political parties getting into a coalition, we must be we must run a multi-party government, not ActionSA-led organization. Importantly, for us to get involved with you in a coalition, we need upfront to commit openly that you will not work with the ANC. As long as there's a door opened that you are prepared to work with the ANC, please leave us out of the negotiations, because we don't want to be used for anyone to use us as an opportunity to get into the ANC door and get ministerial positions. So these are some of the things, conditions that we are putting forward upfront. We are not hiding them, that we would really work with anyone as long as some of these conditions are there. And humility is really very important. I think we cannot afford to really be arrogant when you're in a coalition government, because you don't have the majority to really have the arrogance. So if you feel you want to be arrogant, then don't govern like you've got a two-thirds majority. Once you don't have majority, you look for other parties to govern with you. Please afford them the respect. If not, you create unnecessary tension. And you must understand also that coalitions on a short to medium term basis, ANC is going to disrupt them. And you know why? Because they have US dollars under mattresses to use to buy councillors and public representatives. So they will deliberately buy and use their dollars to create a confusion. So this affects the reality that for us as ActionSA, we are aware about. So that when you see all these confusions, don't really give up and say that the coalitions are not viable. Coalitions are a reality that we've got to live with, but we've got to really understand the dynamics of the coalition. And for us as ActionSA, we embrace those challenges because we look at them as opportunities. Andre, can I give you to deal with
Andre, why consult is the question from SABC News, and how will it take place?
And the policy documents.
Right. Thank you. So I think there's two questions. One is the policy documents that will be made available ahead of the policy conference. And the second issue is, why should we consult if we already have our 11 policy areas? I want to start with the latter question, because I think it's important to understand that as much as we have our 11 areas, those areas are exceptionally broad, and also areas where there is necessarily divergent understandings. If you look at something like social justice means different things to different people. And in a party like ActionSA, where we have a diversity of voters, we want to ensure that when we talk about social justice, everybody is on the same page. The same applies for all of our policies, in fact. I mean, if it's economic prosperity, we need to ensure that the solutions that we are putting forward are guided by the views of our internal membership, but as well as by expert-led engagements and then technical experts as well. I think also from a consultative perspective, we spoke about the fact that the People's Dialogue now was many, many years ago. And in fact, the first set of solutions blueprints that we adopted, which are available on our website up until today, were approved in November 2020 by a Senate that is probably, or was, a third of the size of what it is now, because we were yet to appoint our provincial chairpersons. So the point of the policy conference and the process leading up to that is to reaffirm what we stand for in a more democratic way with our 609 delegates, but also to ensure that we enrich our offering. So, I mean, as Herman has said, and he was talking about his success as a businessman, I mean, I think our policy process is never going to result in ActionSA suddenly embracing socialism, for example. But it is important that when we talk about economic prosperity, we are not just confined to the sort of narrow views of either the academic elite, which Ntate Lediga referred to, or just technical experts. So as much as, yes, there are 11 policy areas, those areas are exceptionally broad and will capture a variety of sub-areas under them in more granular detail, and the consultation process will ensure the ultimate offering that goes to the policy floor. In terms of making policy documents available, we intend this process to be very transparent and engaging with the public. Over the coming months, we will be hosting, as we refer to those 11 round tables, which is one round table per policy bucket or per policy area. And those engagements will also be open to the media, because we want to invite South African experts to come and share their ideas with us. But at the same time, we are not starting from a blank slate. I mean, if we were starting from a blank slate today and simply saying we're going out to consult, that amounts to a populist / outsourcing of our policy. So we are not starting from a blank slate. We are starting from the background we have in the People's Dialogue, but we want to enrich that offering with what we get through those expert roundtable engagements, and then obviously the engagements that we have at a provincial level. Those documents, once they have been approved by Senate ahead of the policy conference, will then be released to the broader public, and it is those documents that will then serve on the floor of the policy conference. So it is very much a work in progress. We have draft discussion documents and the solutions blueprints available on our website. We will be having open engagement sessions where the media will be invited to attend, and in fact the general public as well. And like all our events, those will also be live streamed to the public. And then ahead of the policy conference, once Senate has approved our final offering, those documents will then also be made available to the media and to the public, so that by the time we get to the conference and our delegates get to debate those ahead of their adoption, everybody knows what is under discussion. Lerato, has that covered everything from my side?
You need to, Nasipi needs to cover cadre deployment.
Thank you, Sisanda, by the way. I appreciate you. The first thing, I'm going to say a couple of things. Please indulge me. The first thing, Sisanda, definitely not a cadre deployment, and I'll tell you why. Definitely not. I promise you. No, we are very far from that. We are not going to be the party that, follow these gimmick policies that led us to the crisis that we are in as South Africans. We're not doing that. So basically what the academy is, colleagues, what we are trying to do as ActionSA, and my colleagues have spoken about the membership of ActionSA coming from different backgrounds. What they were maybe not specific about is that ActionSA attracts mostly members who have been disillusioned by the system, and they've been very far from government, and they actually did not pay attention for the many years because they just lost hope in government. So mostly what we get is people who have not registered to vote, people who have not voted for many terms. So what we're trying to do is to empower our own members, to say to them, listen, as a party, we all know a party is you form a political party to get into government. So we must then induct our members to say, what does this mean? So first of all, in our political academy, we need to tell them what the Constitution is about, so that when they say, I want to remain a member, they know what they are signing up for. For people who sold our votes in Tshwane, obviously they skip some parts of that constitution. We don't want those people. We don't want people who stay in ActionSA because they feel they are being coerced in whatever we believed in. So we must tell them that this is what we believe in. But most importantly, we empower our members as a way of leveling a playing field, that there will be opportunities to represent ActionSA in different spheres of government. So this is what the government is about. These are the local government, this is the provincial, this is national government. When you're there, and colleagues, this is very important, political leaders produce, political parties produce political leaders. We don't produce administrators. So it's very clear that we make that distinction, that whatever we do as a political party, we do that to produce leaders to represent the interests of politicians in government. So that's one. So that's what the political academy then focuses on. Then we do have a view, and it's one of the pillars that we're gonna focus on the policy conference, which is the professional service. What we're talking about, colleagues, is that, as some may say, if the cat catches the mice, we don't care if it's black or green, let that cat catches the mice. So the best for the job, colleagues. And I'll tell you that sometimes it's easy for political parties to say, yeah, this is what we believe in. But we have had an experience being in government where we had MMCs in Joburg, MMCs in Ekurhuleni, and currently in Tshwane. And there are two instances, for instance, where we've acted where we could see that our coalition partners were trying to now do this cadre deployment through the back door. The first one was the attempt by the former mayor of Joburg. You reported on the story when they met the candidate before everybody else because that person was friendly to their party. We called them out on that. The second one was in Tshwane, where the one coalition partner was trying to get a chief of police that's not qualified by taking out some legislative requirements. We called them out on that because for politicians, it's easy to work with people they know. We're not about that. We want experts. Colleagues, we're in crisis. There's no time for gimmicks for us to NASIP has a membership number that starts with ASA, therefore NASIP will get preference. It cannot work like that. So we say this out loud to South Africans so that you can hold us to account. Political academy is meant to produce leaders, political leaders for this country. When we get to the public service, we will then appoint the best for the jobs. Thank you.
Thank you,
If
Dr.
you don't mind, I
Moya.
would like to really expand on this cadre deployment because it's really very important. And the reason why I'd like to really expand on this, I had the privilege and honor to serve as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg for 3 years. And immediately upon taking over office, I went on a strat session with the city manager and all the executives, took them out on a 1-week strat session. And I made it abundantly clear after all adopting what is today in the city of Johannesburg at the time called the 10-point plan. One of the critical issues of that 10-point plan was the skills audit. We all agreed and committed that we must run a skills audit so that people are not in jobs because of who they know. People must be in jobs because of what they know, not who they know. And fortunate enough, I'm on record, in fact, you can check it with anyone, to really look at in the 3 years, in the third year, unfortunately, I did not complete my term. Some people, when we started running this skills audit, some started running before, which helped us enormously. Andre was part of that, was in my office at the time. Some of the people did not really make it. And we're not running the skills audit to get rid of people. We just wanted to really make sure that they are fit for purpose. And those who did not qualify, if they were willing, we would move them to other areas, or if they needed training, then we provide them with training. And some of them, as I said, ran away. Some of them we fired. Some of them, unfortunately, we even had to pursue criminal charges against them because of obviously their involvement in corruption. So it's something that we are committed to. So in the event or when ActionSA is in government, skills audit has to really be one of our key priorities. So we are not only going to implement it only when we're in government. That's part of the work that NASIP is doing as head of our governance, so that we prepare our public representatives as politicians, as administrators, to really understand when you're a politician, yes, you play a political role, but when you are on an administrative role, you're not there to serve political parties, you are there to serve society and society broadly. And that's really what we're talking about, the academy, so that people understand, please, when you serve the government, don't put your stomach ahead of society. Put society first, then automatically society will look after you. So if obviously that is regarded as cadre deployment, I think it's a necessary cadre deployment because it is merit-based. It's not really aligned to political consideration. And I'm sure that's something that most South African or normal South Africans will appreciate. So if obviously it's going to be regarded as such, we are happy to engage. We are not doing it with ulterior motive. We share this openly with you, and we share it with South Africans to really know that public service is about saving society.
Thank you for that. I was just saying that it's pretty hard to not put your stomach in front if it's this high. Colleagues, that was the first round of questions. Is there anything else? Otherwise, I will close. I think that was a mouthful, right? You got everything that you needed. Yeah. Okay, I think everybody's heard that. If you do want one-on-ones, those are available. But with that said, this is the end of our conference. This concludes the business of the morning. Thank you all so much, as always. We'll see you at the next one. Thank you.